Why does the United States pay higher drug prices than other countries? Because America's the only country in the world where 340B hospitals mark up drug prices and PBM middlemen charge billions in hidden fees. Meanwhile, Americans subsidize the research and development for new cures. Other countries benefit, but don't pay their fair share. Crack down on the middlemen. End the free riding. Lower drug prices. Go to balancethescales.org to learn more. Paid for by Pharma.
The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. The Air Force Research Laboratory is partnering with Google Cloud using AI to accelerate defense research for air, space, and cyberspace forces. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American innovation.
The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. On March 14th, 2025, William J. Pulte was sworn in as the 5th director of the U.S. Federal Housing and Finance Administration following his nomination to that position by President Donald Trump. He was confirmed on a bipartisan vote by the U.S. Senate. Now, in this important role, Bill Pulte oversees Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the Federal Home Loan Banks. So it is a crucial position in terms of Donald Trump's stated goal of making housing more affordable and more accessible. We're honored to have Bill Pulte join us on the Roger Stone Show today. Bill, welcome.
Thank you, Roger. Always good talking to you.
So you can't turn on a television or a computer this week, whether it's CNBC or Fox or The Hill. You have been very vocal in calling on Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell to cut interest rates with inflation at 2%. How does Powell, whom I must point out is not an economist, he's a lawyer, and I think incredibly political, how does he justify keeping interest rates at 4.5%?
Well, his time has come. He's got to go. Enough is enough. This guy has had his day. He's done too much damage. He continues to do too much damage. I mean, we all know this guy from COVID, and then Biden renominated him. I mean, this guy is just a disaster. He's a mess, and he needs to go. You know, President Trump has so much momentum right now in this country. You know, he has the economy rearing to go, but we have this guy, Jerome Powell, who is just holding it back. And frankly, Roger, I think that his hate for President Trump, unfortunately, is the reason that he's not lowering the rates. You bring up a great point. If rates are at 4.5% and inflation is at 2%, why is he punishing? Why is he punishing the average American? And it only leaves you with one thing, which is that he hates him. He hates the president, and he doesn't understand the plight of Americans who have to deal with the ramifications of his terrible, terrible policy.
Yeah, it's interesting. The president, in a social media posting last night, called him a total and complete moron. Very typical of Donald Trump's tendency for understatement. What's ironic here, of course, is that Powell keeps saying he doesn't have enough data to justify a rate cut. Yet all the data he's looking at is outdated. The interest rate, I should say the inflation rate, is what it is. They fear a Trump boom. That's what this is really about.
Correct. They fear it, and they fear it going into the midterms and stuff like this. But look, this is supposed to be an apolitical position. This is supposed to be like the economy. This is supposed to be providing for Americans. Why all of a sudden now does he say that he has no data? And why all of a sudden now is he making these political decisions? I mean, Roger, they cut, as you know, they cut right before the election to help Biden, many people say. And now you've got a situation where, you know, they literally have data that says that they need to lower, and they're not doing it. So you'll be seeing some things come out this week from me, which is going to probably, get some more attention in terms of calling this gentleman out or this guy out, because this has just gone on for too long, and American homeowners are suffering. And as you know, I oversee Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and we have a very good pulse on the American economy and a very good pulse on the American homeowners. And Americans just can't take this any longer. They just can't take it.
Yeah, I saw you point out in one of the many interviews you gave last week, which I think were incredibly effective. It's not just the effect on housing. It's the effect on auto loans, credit cards, as well as mortgages. Powell is willfully and politically holding back the entire economy. What would an interest rate cut by Powell, what would be the effect on the housing market alone?
Well, you'd see great movement. You'd see people being able to afford homes. You know, Roger, people went from 3% mortgages. You know, they had 3% was their cost on mortgages in President Trump's first term, to now, after 4 years of disastrous Obama, I meant to say Biden, but it's the same thing almost in so many ways. It's 7% mortgages. So your affordability has gone through the toilet in terms of with Biden. I mean, you can't even afford a home in this country because of Biden the last 4 years. And so to your point, if we were able to get lower rates, you'd start to see affordability come back into play, and people would be able to finally afford the American dream again. And we are going to restore the American dream in President Trump's America. And frankly, we just need to get Jerome Powell out of the way so that way Americans can afford this great thing that we call the American dream once again.
You know, Bill, I really think you are getting under Powell's skin. I was happy to see the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, and also great friend of this show, Senator Tommy Tuberville, echoing your call for Powell to resign. If the president can't fire him, and it's not clear to me whether he has the authority to fire him. I hear different opinions on that. But if he can't fire him, then frankly, Powell should step down. He should simply resign. I noticed that he announced a dozen speaking engagements over the next week. So I think the criticism is getting to him. Look,
I agree. I think it's very much getting to him.
Yeah, Powell's a lawyer, not an economist. Donald Trump is a legendary builder, and you're a member of one of America's great home building families. I'm sorry, but I have a feeling that President Trump and you have a much better idea on how to handle interest rates than Jerome Powell and his completely politicized agenda. It is obvious who's acting politically and who isn't. Let's turn, if we may, to the big, beautiful bill. I think many Americans really don't understand the full importance in terms of passing this legislation. Is it perfect? No, it is not perfect. But it's also not in its final form. It's going to get changed. It's going to get changed in the Senate. It's going to get changed in conference. But the important aspects to this, to me, are the 68% tax cut that was initiated under President Donald Trump in his first term. Failure to approve the big, beautiful bill would give Americans the greatest single tax increase in our history. I'm not sure enough people know that.
Well, not only that, but President Trump won a historic mandate in this election based on many of the tenets of the bill. So the American people have given him the mandate to do this, and now it needs to happen. And whether, like you said, whether it's Powell or whether it's some of these obstructionist Democrats, they need to look at the facts and the reality of the matter, which is that President Trump is overwhelmingly popular with the American people. He won a mandate, and look, the bill needs to pass, and I'm very confident, frankly, that with the support that he has in both the House and the Senate, it will get done. But, you know, these are political times, and you know it better than me, having been in politics your whole life.
Well, look, the American people always rally to a wartime president. I said at the top of the show that I'm not second-guessing the President of the United States. Yeah, my history is as an anti-interventionist Republican, but that means I don't want endless foreign war where our inherent national interests are not even remotely clear. That's not what we have here. There are no boots on the ground. There's no long-term plan to invade Iran. This was a necessary surgical strike to protect the very narrow interests, not just of Israel, but of all our allies in the region, as well as the United States. It's also, in my view, kind of a brushback to the Chinese in case they have any thoughts about Taiwan. America's back because Donald Trump is our president. Otherwise, the nation's decline would just continue. And the cut in interest rates by the Fed, combined with the renewed federal tax cuts, and a emphasis on cutting regulation. This administration really does put us on the cusp of a golden age, doesn't it, Bill?
It really does. And I tell you this, we're going to look back, I think, in 2, 3, 4 years when President Trump is done with his work, and we're going to say this is one of the best economies, if not the best ever in the history of the world, what we're about to see. But frankly, President Trump has a lot that he has to clean up from the last 4 years. But there's nobody better for the job, and we're working very hard at it. I mean, I'll just tell you in the housing market in particular, Roger, because Fed Chair Powell was too late and he raised the rates too quickly and too late, you had people trapped in these low-interest loans in their homes, Roger. And so now nobody wants to sell their existing homes because they have these low mortgages. So you're not getting any inventory turns. You're not getting any churn in terms of people buying and selling their homes. And so it's really been a disaster. But I'm very confident that we have the president, we have the right president, we have the right team, and we're going to reverse the last 4 years of, frankly, this hell that they created in the housing market.
All right, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to William J. Bill Pulte. He is the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. This week he's been an outspoken advocate for Jerome Powell either cutting interest rates based on the historically low inflation rate or stepping down, resigning, which I think is a great idea. You can't turn on the media this week without getting hot and cold running Pulte. We're honored to have him here on the Roger Stone Show. We're going to continue to talk about the Trump economy when we get back on the other side. So, folks, whatever you do, we got a few more minutes with Bill Pulte. Please don't touch that dial.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This shrimp and coconut sauce is divine. What's your secret?
Goya coconut milk.
How does it taste so good?
It's all in that real coconut flavor and that rich, creamy texture.
What about thickeners and added sugars?
None. Just smooth, coconutty goodness.
What can I make with it?
From curries to sweet treats like coconut flan, the possibilities are endless.
Goya coconut milk. Take your cooking to the next level. No question about it. Find it in the Goya section of your local grocery store. If it's Goya, it has to be good.
Roger Stone here for Colonial Metals Group. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Go to freegoldguide.com/stone or call 800-747-6589 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold, and it's 100% tax-free.
Your gut affects everything, even your mood. So Ollie created 2 brand new products to take care of your insides. Ollie Big 10 Probiotic has 10 strains of probiotics, their most ever, to support a healthy gut microbiome, immune system, and stress response. And Ollie Super Good Superfoods delivers 15 superfoods in tasty gummy form. Find them at ollie.com and exclusively at Walmart.
Ollie!
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back at the Roger Stone Show here at the Red Apple Audio Networks. We're talking to Bill Pulte, who is the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. Before his appointment, Bill Pulte had a long-standing career in home building, housing products, and community development. 2011, Bill Pulte founded Pulte Capital Partners, an investment firm that focuses on building and housing projects. He also served on the board of Pulte Homes, one of the most respected home builders in the country, a Fortune 500 company. But beyond business, Bill is also recognized for his philanthropic activities. He founded the Blight Authority, a nonprofit organization that was dedicated to removing urban blight in Detroit, Michigan, St. Louis, Missouri, and Pontiac, Michigan. So Bill Pulte is one who's had an enormous success in America, but he also has given back, in my opinion. He is one of President Trump's very best appointments. And, Bill, you have been very outspoken this week in calling out Jerome Powell, the ultra-politicized chairman of the Federal Reserve, who seems to be standing in the way of what could be the greatest single economic boom in American history, the Trump boom. It really is time for this guy to step aside. I don't understand why he doesn't get the picture.
It really is. And the arrogance that this guy has is quite unbelievable, Roger. You know, it's like, can you imagine going to somebody's house for dinner, or worse, having somebody win an election by a huge mandate, in the case President Trump, and you're sitting there and you're working for this guy, or supposed to be working for this guy. Nobody wants you there. Nobody wants Jerome Powell there anymore, from what I can tell, because of, frankly, his arrogant attitude that he's had all of these years. And now he sits there and he basically says, no, I'm not lowering rates. And instead of doing what he usually says that he does, which is, oh, I'm data-driven, he's provided no data. And, Roger, we've got a situation now where you have these rates at 4.5% and inflation is at 2%. President Trump has completely crushed inflation. But President Trump can control inflation, or has been able to influence it at least, whereas Jerome Powell, he is the one who sets the rates. And so it's a very, very discomforting fact, and that's why I've called for Jerome Powell's resignation, and I will continue to do so. And I'm very excited and very happy that, you know, there is a lot of momentum for this, because the American dream needs to be restored in this country. And if we have guys like Jerome Powell in this country who are sitting there and doing things for what I believe to be political reasons, that is not good, and it needs to stop, and it needs to stop now.
Yeah, Barry Habib, who I look to as one of the country's leading authorities on both housing and mortgages, a true economic guru, a visionary in this area, refers to the chairman as too late Powell, because of this great tendency to try to use antiquated and outdated data to justify his current position. I think it's pretty clear. Inflation, checked this morning, was at 2%. Powell seemed, and his colleagues, I should say, seemed very eager to help try to manipulate the economy through interest rate cuts to try to reelect Joe Biden. But now, when they accuse the president of acting politically because he wants a rate cut to get this economy really cooking, they accuse him of the one playing politics when they're the ones playing politics.
Yes, and President Trump doesn't have an election coming up. He doesn't have anything other than wanting to do what's in the best interest of the American people. And he was given a mandate. I mean, I don't know about you, but on November 6th, President Trump I saw him as being the one who was elected on TV, not Jerome Powell. And, you know, he won all these states. He won Florida. He won all these states, Ohio, you name it, he won it. 312 electoral votes. Jerome Powell got none. And I just see from my perspective, and this is just my own opinion, but I see somebody who's incredibly disrespectful to the President of the United States and Jerome Powell, and he needs to resign. And, you know, what's amazing, Roger, is that somebody can have this much so-called authority, and you mentioned there's a whole bunch of legal questions around that and certain things regarding that. But I can't believe that somebody like Jerome Powell can cost us trillions and trillions of dollars. And then on top of that, Roger, in addition to costing us trillions of dollars, think about the average person who has, you know, credit cards, who is trying to make their way in life, whether starting their own business or getting a new job or trying to have a family. Where is the empathy that Jerome Powell has for that? And this is one of the biggest criticisms that people have of Washington, D.C., you know, and I'm very sensitive to it now that I'm working in Washington, D.C., is, you know, how do you make sure that when you go to D.C., you don't lose your sense of touch, your sense of sensibility with the American people? And it just seems to me, Roger, that this guy is totally ignoring the struggles of the American people, and he's doing it all out of vindictive rage towards the president. That's what it appears to me.
No, I think you're exactly right. It says so when I see people refer to Donald Trump as a politician, I don't think he'll ever be a politician. He's the leader of a political movement, a reform movement. But as I think the Iranians just learned, he's a man who says what he means and means what he says. And he's about business. He's about commerce over chaos. You summed this up better than anybody else the other day when you said that by keeping interest rates high, Jerome Powell is trapping homeowners in low-rate mortgages, choking off existing home sales, and directly fueling the current housing supply crisis. I'm not sure how this can get much clearer. When does Powell's current term end? How soon can we be rid of this man President Donald Trump refers to in an understatement as a total and complete moron?
Well, it looks like it's going to be early next year, but we'll see. We'll see what the president decides to do. It's entirely up to the president what it is that he's looking at doing. I'll say this. I do think, though, that for the sake of the country, Jerome Powell needs to resign, and he needs to resign now. Enough damage has occurred. We can't, it's almost too late. I mean, there's so much damage that has occurred, in my opinion, as a result of this guy. And the arrogance is just, it's nauseating to me that this guy can't read the room. You're always taught as a kid, right, when you're growing up and when you're in business and stuff, or when you're in any type of negotiation or just any life event, read the room. And this guy needs to read the room, and he needs to exit stage left for the sake of the country and for the sake of this president's, mandate that he was given. This president was given a historic mandate and needs to be given a shot, and we can't have people like Jerome Powell standing in the way.
What an extraordinary opportunity. Just think, if we could both pass the big, beautiful bill, the largest tax cut across the board on the American people, plus doing away with the tax on tips, the tax on Social Security. At the same time, we got an interest rate cut. We really would enter the golden age, an age of unprecedented prosperity for the American people. One of those working closely with President Donald Trump to make sure that is reality. Bill Pulte, the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, who has been very clear this week about the absolute necessity of Jerome Powell either cutting interest rates on the working families of America or stepping down. Bill Pulte, thank you so much for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show. That's it for us today, folks. Until next Sunday, God bless you and Godspeed.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to It Takes Energy, presented by Energy Transfer, where we talk all things oil and natural gas. Oil and gas drive our economy, ensure our country's security, and open pathways to brighter futures. When it comes to meeting the world's energy needs, more is better. What we mean is our world needs a wide range of energy sources to meet our increasing needs. Just wind or solar won't get us there, as the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. With our growing population and the increasing use of energy-demanding technologies like AI, reliability is key, and the reliability of natural gas is unmatched by wind and solar. That doesn't mean we all can't work together, but natural gas is vital to ensuring we meet our energy needs. Look around, and you'll see the essential role oil and gas plays in our lives. Our world needs oil and gas, and people rely on us to deliver it. To learn more, visit energytransfer.com.